Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
That's right, Kevin O'Connell. Away we go. It is Purple Daily / Purple Access. Actually, it's Judd. It's Roscoe producing as always. And Chip Scoggins, Start Tribune sports columnist, joins me every week, my good buddy, to talk about the Vikings. Chipper, I got to ask you this, all right? So they won 12 games now. They're 12-2. There's tiebreakers involved still, but they're, for all intents and purposes, control their own destiny. Philadelphia 12-2, Detroit 12-2. You've covered sports in this town for a long time, certainly some surprises. Where does this rank right now in your mind, just as far as just really this team, I don't think they're going to win 3 consecutive games now, but they very well might, and if they do, they're going to win 15 bleeping football games.
I know, yeah, it's different because this is a regular season versus postseason, but
right.
03 Wild, that was a team that was still in its infancy and didn't have marquee names other than Marion Gabbert, but it came together. They had a collective spirit that was unbelievable. They had great coaching. They had veterans that had career years. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
what we're seeing now that it remains to be seen what happens in the postseason. But what do we always say? There's few things better in sports than obviously championships are the pinnacle, but unexpected success in terms of just entertainment. And if you get a regular season with unexpected success, it's hard to top.
And this is not just unexpected, but they won 6 consecutive to start. Then they lose 2, and you're like, okay, and then they come back and have won 7 games. And like on Monday night, the thing that impressed me was this. I mean, it wasn't a great game, but ultimately, at the end of the day, they essentially, score-wise, blew out a team that they should have. Now, that might sound simple, but A, we have seen the Vikings lose that very game in different forms before, and B, we have seen that game otherwise be far closer than it should be, and you can nitpick that game all you want, but when we left the stadium, the Chicago Bears had been basically destroyed score-wise. So, these are the things that impress me, Chipper.
Well, yeah, and they can have these games, and we've seen them where, they have sloppy or they're not getting much going on offense, or they have a mistake here or there, but they always find a way to make the play or a couple plays, or their stars will show up and do something and okay, they're going to win this game. And I think the art of the NFL is finding a way to win when you're not at your best, or when you're not, against the Falcons, everybody would love to see that performance every week. It doesn't happen, right? Where I don't want to say you're flawless, but that says, if you're going to script a game, that's what you want it to look like. It doesn't happen like that. More times than not, it doesn't happen like that. And so when you can find a way when things are kind of muddied and you're not at your peak, that's what good teams do. And I feel like a broken record, as we say each week, but this is a fun team to cover because I think they got some really cool personalities and some characters in the locker room to deal with. And obviously winning brings it out more. You're going to see personalities more than when they're losing. But the level of coaching we're seeing, that you don't get to see that, in every team in every season. I mean, it just feels like whenever they take the field, they have a plan. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but they have a plan and a counterpunch to whatever they're going to see.
They also do a really good job, I think, too, of altering the plan in game.
Yeah.
Case in point, Monday night. First half, okay. Second half, though, they commit more to the run. And the run game, which I think we all have banged the drum for, more run game, becomes an instrumental part of that game, which then makes play action a much bigger, more legitimate threat. Those are things, too. I feel like O'Connell has his principles, and he calls good games. But I also feel like between Kevin O'Connell running the offense, Brian Flores on the defense, you know what you see? Because fans are like, or I've heard this before, halftime adjustments, they don't adjust, they go in and eat oranges. There's no adjustments at halftime. You guys blow that out of proportion. I don't think good coaching staffs go in and eat oranges. I think they go in and make some adjustments. It doesn't mean you throw out the game plan, Chipper, but it certainly means that you might shift a philosophy.
Well, we see it a lot. We see it every week with, and I'm sure with B-Flow too, but O'Connell talks about, like, they get a sense of how the coverages are going to be because, when they went through that stretch where Jefferson wasn't getting a lot of targets, they were saying, well, whatever defense we're seeing on Sunday is not the defense that team has shown the previous weeks when they saw him on film. And so it's forced them to be able to adjust in real time to whatever coverages they're seeing and how they're going to defend Jefferson. And so I do think you see them, whether they're throwing deep, whether they're throwing intermediate, whether they're going to run more. I was thinking about this when I was watching that game the other night, Judd. It's like the Vikings, I think what makes them special is they have a number of ways that they can win. Jefferson can get hot and just, go crazy. Darnold can have one of his games. They can run the ball. Defense can create turnovers. They can, hold a team to 6 points, 9, whatever. It's not just one formula that they have to rely on. It just feels like, Jordan Addison can have a monster game, and all of a sudden that's going to swing the edge to them. So they have a lot of different ways to get the edge on a team and a lot of different ways to win.
Yes, they definitely do. And I do think that the multifaceted threats of an offense that, to your point, has not one, but two receivers, one who is probably the best at what he does in the world, but one who's damn good and could be a top receiver on different teams. The fact that the run game is and can be a threat.
Yes.
There's just so many different types of things. And O'Connell, the illusion of complexity, which now we've sort of seen firsthand quite a bit of and understand what that means. That is some impressive stuff. I mean, my only nitpick with Kevin at times has been to actually, it's more of a philosophical, I think you should run the ball more to keep the clock grinding and to, again, create the perception of the threat that play action might get you. But as far as like his philosophies of motion and how he draws guys out, that tree of guys, which is probably what, LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, they're as good as it possibly gets in that area.
Well, and Suhan wrote about this the other night, and it was 100% right. It's like when you watch that game, the difference in coaching, what good coaching means to a team versus what bad coaching means. The Bears looked completely disorganized. They have a guy run in, they score a touchdown, he gets called off because he doesn't, declare himself. Their quarterback is regressing big time. I mean, he looks so indecisive and just he's not seeing the field. Coaching matters. Like, coaching is a big deal, and you could just see it. That was one really good, really, really well coached team and one really poorly coached team. And I mean, it's putting guys in the right place. It's the scheme. It's being able to adjust. I mean, I think Flores does a great job of adjusting too. I mean, the way he calls the game it's probably so higher level than we could possibly understand ourselves as kind of lay people here. But you don't ever feel like they're going to go into a game and have a deficit in coaching. They're not going to be at a disadvantage. And that's as a starting point, that's a pretty good starting point, right?
Well, Chip, Daniel Jones is not here because he thought it would be fun to leave the Giants and spend the winter here and not play. He's here
on a practice squad.
He's here. He's here because of O'Connell. He's here because and that's the thing that's going to be so intriguing in March when free agency starts with money to spend. You're going to have a lot of guys that want to play here. You're going to have a lot of guys that say, okay, it's cold there, but new stadium, selling point. Their facility is beautiful. And now you've got a coach who is, among the most respected and clearly the players love the dude. I thought Kramer's piece in the Thursday Start Tribune was fantastic about the Wednesday practice schedule. And I mean, it seems small, but it's not. The entire schedule was moved around for a later practice because of the fact that it's a short week. So I guess the choice was the coaches can be here watching film until 2 a.m. on Wednesday, or O'Connell said I could talk to the players and see if they can accommodate, move practice back. And then he gets as much of the leadership committee together on a FaceTime call. Like, these are things, again, it's not just coaching too, it's being a human being.
Yeah. Well, it's and being flexible. I mean, how many coaches we said, nope, that's what we're doing. This is it.
Yeah, 100%.
We can't deviate. I mean, if you deviate, we're going to have distractions. They're not going to be able to handle it. That's nonsense. And when you see that, I think this is the second year or third year of the Players Association poll that ranks it. I mean, players pay attention to that. Like if I'm a free agent, obviously money is going to be the number one thing, but you're also going to look at the circumstances of an organization. If one is ranking really high on how they value players and how they treat them and all these different things, well, that's going to make it attractive to them. So, it is, I can't think of another team where you're sitting here thinking so far. I said 7-10 going into the season, and I didn't feel like, they were 12-2, and the number of players that have come in here. I mean, you think about it. He's not going to win. Josh Allen's going to be the MVP, but the fact that Sam Darnold's even being mentioned in the MVP conversation.
Yep.
And then Jonathan Greenard, I don't think he'll be defense MVP, but he probably should be mentioned in the conversation. I mean, it's two free agents where you're talking about the MVP and
that brings up a very, very interesting discussion. So I guess O'Connell, rightfully so, has moved to the odds-on favorite to be coach of the year, which, by the way, he deserves.
Yeah,
100%. Here's the other one, though.
Yeah.
It's Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, executive of the year. When you look at that, and just to be clear again, he's not Spielman as far as scouting goes, okay? So he gets input from people, but that's important to take it. O'Connell, Flores, his pro personnel staff. But when you look at what that guy has done, in my opinion, best free agent class in the history of the franchise. Your star left tackle, who's just an instrumental player, gets hurt, and there's talk about, are we going to move Blake Brandel to left tackle? What are we going to do? Old school Vikings. Let's move Remmers to the guard, and it goes haywire. Instead, now, Cam didn't have a great game against the Bears. He had a tough game, but Cam Robinson's been a hell of a pickup. I think Kwesi's got a legitimate argument to be executive of the year in the National Football League.
Well, he does. When you think about Cam Robinson, I mean, it was a tough night. I think he had 3 or 4 penalties, whatever it was. But have they lost since Darisaw got hurt?
No. He got hurt against the Rams.
That's right. I mean,
they haven't lost.
Yeah, you haven't lost, and you lose, one of your top 5 best players on the team. I mean, it's so. I think obviously the comeback's always going to be the draft. And that's part of it. It's, it's 50%, if you're saying draft is 50 and free agent is 50, the drafts have not been good, but you cannot hit a free agency class better than what he's done with this.
No, and I'm not convinced that I think this draft 2024 is going to stand to be just fine. The Dallas Turner thing to me is so he started to play more, and on Monday night he played well. The Dallas Turner conversation, though, is very different than like the 22. Like I think because he wasn't playing, people were like, "Oh my God, he's not playing.
Look,
he's a boss." Flores is developing him, and the other thing too is they've got 2 rush ends that are really damn good. I actually think the approach with Dallas Turner, as frustrating as it might have been at times this season, is going to turn out to be a really good long-term play because they didn't force him in when he probably might not have been prepared yet.
Well, that's it. I mean, obviously when you give up the assets they did to go get him, you're thinking, oh, he's going to be, I thought too. I thought, man, he's going to be defensive rookie of the year, because he was such a dynamic athlete. But one, he's playing behind 2 really good players. And then I just don't know that this system is the easiest to grasp for a guy to come in right away and just master Flores is what he expects of guys. I mean, it's just going to take time, and we've seen as the season gone on, his reps have just kind of get more and more, and they're putting him in the right spot. And he was really good the other night. So I think they've handled him smartly, right? They didn't have to rush him. It wasn't like they had a void at rush in where they just had to put him in there and let him, learn on the job. They didn't have to do that, and so they had the luxury of developing them the way they're doing it, and I think they're being rewarded because of that. And I think Turner's. I agree with you. I think he's going to be a better player because of it, because how his process has gone.
Absolutely. So Detroit is banged up to hell. They've got I think 16 defensive players have been lost. Montgomery, who formed a great tandem with Gibbs, is out now. So 3 games left. Here are your schedules. Okay. So Vikings, Eagles, Lions, all 12-2. I think at the end of the day, although the Eagles' strength of victory is better than the Vikings right now because of what I'm about to go through, I think that's going to flip. So the Vikings, if they can win all 3 games, probably get the top seed, because I think Detroit's going to be hard-pressed with their injury status to win 3 consecutive games. So the Vikings go Sunday at Seattle, then Green Bay at home, and Detroit at Detroit. Now, Detroit's 12-2 as well. Green Bay 10-4, Seattle 8-6. The Lions go at Chicago 4-10, at San Francisco 6-8, and then they get, obviously at Ford Field, the Vikings in the season finale. The Eagles go at Washington 9-5, but they have beaten a lot of bad teams, Shipper. And then Dallas for Philadelphia 6-8, and then end the season with the Giants at 2-12. Given all that, what do you think the Vikings' chances are? Because if you get that home field, I mean, we talked about this in 2009. If you get home field and now get the only bye that exists, it used to be 2, now it's 1. That is such an advantage.
I think they have the toughest schedule when you look at it. I think the Eagles have the easiest, right? Probably.
Yeah. Yes.
The Lions, as much as you can feel bad for another fan base, they're probably thinking, hey, all the years of misery, and this is, we have this team that's so likable and the way they're playing. And I mean, everybody deals with injuries, but, this is such an outlier. So, such extraordinary what they've had. I don't know that they'll be able to overcome them. They still got firepower on offense, and Dan Campbell is, master motivator. So maybe they can figure out a way to, but it's just so many injuries. I don't know if that you can. You watch that Bills game, and the Bills are awesome, but they just couldn't stop them.
Nope. They onside kicked with 12 minutes left, having to declare it.
Yeah,
because of that.
I mean, part of that's just Dan Campbell, but part of it is also, we can't stop them. Our defense, we have to do this.
Right.
So, I think the Eagles probably have the more attractive path to number 1, but even it seems like they've had a lot of drama and dysfunction.
They've had nothing but drama and dysfunction. And Sirianni's a lunatic.
He's holding back, getting held back from players. The fans are booing him early. I don't understand. Like, I don't follow them weekly. What's going on there? But if you can get that home field, the way that U.S. Bank is rocking. I mean, last year they couldn't win there, and then this year, it's turned back into that advantage like we've seen. I'm not counting this team out for anything, though, Judd. I mean, as much as
I know,
I'm not doing that again. I just think there's a confidence about them, and a professionalism and a maturity about the way they've navigated this season. It's I don't think anything's off the table in terms of expectations with him.
It's fueled by O'Connell, right? Like that's the overwhelming feeling I get is that the players have taken a page from him, and like his confidence. And it's funny because he's a very nice guy. Media wise, he is great. Like he is his public facing, but Kevin O'Connell is a very cocky former quarterback, sure of himself. He's got his convictions. So I think the players are fueled by more than what the public probably sees, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a compliment.
Yeah, I think it's he instills confidence in him, but he also instills enthusiasm and optimism
Correct.
and positivity. I mean, there's something about it may sound corny, but there's something to be said about a positive work environment. And
Mhm.
obviously winning does that. You know, if you're I can't imagine the Bears locker room's a fun place to be in their entire organization building. I can't imagine that's a fun place to be, but you just when you're around the Vikings, you feel something like this team likes being together. They like the vibe is 100% feels right, and they just have guys that are playing at a really high level. I mean, Greenard, Van Ginkel, Cashman, defensively, and they're not just their stars, but they're. I mean, think about just like their defensive line; those guys that are stepping up, guys they've just plugged in there. Tillery, he makes a couple of huge plays. I mean, they're just, you
They
know,
bring in guys off the street. That
they have
Davis
a
guy that they signed off the Packers
he
practice
had a
squad, the
huge he had a
linebacker,
huge play. Yeah,
he's playing now.
I mean the roster construction. When kind of those backups that we don't really pay a lot of attention to during training camp. I mean, it just shows you how valuable roster construction is.
It's interesting too, Chip, because starting with Darnold, but it permeates the entire roster. You've got a lot of guys who I think it starts with a belief in them that the coaching staff showed.
Yeah,
That then, because I mean, if you think about playing sports, there is a very small group of star players, right? Like you
yeah,
throw the ball out and they're going to be the best. But some of it is basically based on how confident is the coaching staff in you and how much are they going to put you in a position to succeed, which to me, it's the latter. So Greenard to me is the latter. They signed, I mean, Grenard's a perfect fit. He's an absolutely
yeah.
perfect fit. Van Ginkel's been a great fit. Like they went out, and I'm guessing it's Flores, but they went out and identified a bunch of guys that they said will work in this system in particular.
Yeah.
But they also have that secondary group, which are the guys probably 40 to 53 on the roster, who are sort of afterthoughts, but the coaching staff has given them, like, empowered them. You know who's a perfect example of that? He'd be gone from most teams by now. Brian Asamoah. Brian
Yeah.
Asamoah can't get a sniff of the field defensively.
Yep.
He's a draft pick who we all thought would be starting by now. Brian Flores just basically said he ain't going to play for me. But he has turned out to be a special teams menace in a great way. Like that's
Yes.
a real credit to the kid himself, but it's also a
Yeah.
credit to a coaching staff because they cut bait on a bunch of those draft picks they didn't like, but they saw something in him and said, "Nah, you know
Yeah.
what? He can work in this particular role."
Well, it is. I mean, it's a credit to him because he could have pouted and like I'm not getting my opportunity here. I thought I was going to be playing as a high draft pick, and it's clearly not going to work defensively. But he said, you know what? I'm going to be the best darn special teams player I can be. I'm going to make an impact there, and he has. I mean, he's a valuable special teams guy for him. But yeah, it's been fascinating. Like, you talk about Greenard. Like when they got him, we knew he had a big year last year, and you knew he was his age, and he's on up and coming. Entering his prime. But I didn't watch every. Won't pretend to say I watched him a lot last year, so I didn't know how good he would be. And you're right. Fit is everything. Like he is a perfect fit for what they're doing and how he gets used. And you pair him with Van Ginkel, and it's like, I assume this is what Flores envisioned. Like when he said, "These are the two guys I would love to bring into my defense and wait and see what it looks like." He was. I mean, it's 100% right because both of them have been just so impactful. I mean, Greenard again. I mean, the sack.
He's everywhere right now.
That rookie left tackle had no chance.
Well,
he just
and I actually Flores did a fantastic job of confusing Caleb Monday, but I am convinced that Caleb's night changed completely with the blindside strip sack. He was never the same after that. He was running away from blitzes that weren't blitzes.
We're there, yeah. Start seeing ghosts, yeah. And then he wouldn't. And Aikman did a good job at pointing out. It's like he had guys wide open, but he wouldn't throw it. And I don't know if the pressure of
He did.
if it's the culmination of a season playing behind a bad line where he's just so indecisive. Like right now, he's not seeing things. And you think about O'Connell's quote about organizations fail quarterbacks more than quarterbacks fail organizations. They have a lot of work to do to get him back on track because he looks completely lost right now.
if they hire a defensive coach,
Yeah.
and Flores deserves it. I think because of his pending suit against the league, he's a long shot. But the talk there is Mike Vrabel. If they hire a defensive coach, they're the biggest bunch of. I mean, they're not smart to begin with, but
Yeah.
it could be because the second that if they hire a defensive coach and that guy hires an OC who is the next Ben Johnson, guess what?
Yeah.
That dude's out the door.
Well,
Like
he's got
you've got to get an offensive, quarterback friendly, O'Connell like, LaFleur like, I don't care who it is, but you've got to get a guy that can do that. Like Caleb's on this is a real slippery slope now, man. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this. He clearly has his issues, but you watch him play, Chipper.
He's got talent. It's talent.
Tons of talent.
Well, he's got talent, but right now he's indecisive. He's not seeing anything. Every pass is a Duran fastball. It's 100 miles an hour. Like there's no touch.
Yes,
they just
blowing it through guys.
Yeah, it's like you just watch him. It's like he just feels like he's completely lost, and you hate to see a guy with that kind of talent really get put in a terrible situation that's impeding his development. So, I mean, that's for them to decide. But that's it speaks to the value that what O'Connell has brought here and why. I mean, he's going to be the coach of the year. Should be a slam dunk. I don't think there's anyone. What he's done to get 12-2 with Darnold and
in the season,
considering the expectations.
Yeah.
And
to me,
choice.
Chipper, it goes back to July. You had a draft pick die we have both covered teams where that has taken place. It has an impact on your entire season, and a lot of times it's not good. Like you're basically telling a room of guys that you want to be fearless right before the season, that a colleague of yours is now gone. We've seen that, and that story does not end well all of the time. And O'Connell, goes to the funeral and speaks. They don't try to ignore it. Kyrie Jackson's honored still.
Pins. Yeah.
But
his locker's there. His locker.
But instead of trying to say and a lot of coaches do this, instead of saying, you know what, no, we got to ignore that. We got to go play football. O'Connell took it and was like, how can we handle it? Like, these are the things that to me make if you look at a season as chapters, I don't think the Vikings have mismanaged a chapter the entire year. And I can't say that about a lot of teams, Vikings teams especially, that we've been around.
No. And, great start. You come back to the Jacksonville game, the turnovers are starting to come. And then what do we all say? Yep, here comes Sam Darnold. Here comes, and he just pivoted back to being on track and putting up good numbers. I thought his accuracy was gone the other night. Left him. He missed some balls throw. I don't know. It was an off night or whatever. But even when he wasn't hitting them, at the highest percentage, that team still found a way to blow out a division opponent,
And that's why I think partially in the second half, they went to the run game.
They ran the ball. Yeah.
Because they said, okay, he's not, he's not bad. I mean, the throw that he made at the one to Jefferson, not the touchdown pass, that was nice. Yeah. But that throw between two guys was phenomenal. But they also said, you know what? Let's go run the ball. The Bears can't stop that. They were exactly right. Kirk Cousins, speaking of quarterbacks, what was your reaction to the Falcons' $100 million man being benched? And I think it's about to get very interesting there. I don't expect this to be a seamless divorce.
No, the writing was on the wall, right? I mean, when you're getting asked about it every week, obviously the quarterback's not playing great, and you're struggling. And the way he played here, I thought they might do it that week. I mean, Raheem Morris came out and said, "No, he's our quarterback." After we'll examine everything. So he was sort of couching it. It was like, I thought it'd be after the season, but when he's leading the league in picks and just putting you in bad spots, it's like nothing's given, nothing's guaranteed. You got to earn it, and so it'll be. I mean, they're still technically alive, right? In the playoff. I mean, it's fascinating in that degree, but I assume a team signs Cousins next year? I don't know. I mean, is he done?
Well, the immediate stuff I saw from fans was, well, the Falcons will trade him. He's got a complete no trade. He ain't going to be
Yeah.
traded. He's
No.
going to force his release. The
The
offset
money.
language means he's going to force the Falcons to pay him every last dime. He's going to take the Russell Wilson Steelers deal, which is pay me $12 and I'm going to get $100 million from this team. But here's my thing. He's not healthy.
No.
So
But-
can he get back? He's going to be 37 next summer. Can he come back from an Achilles? Like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins might be very much the same guy now, which is you tear your Achilles at that age, coming back ain't easy, man.
And what is the situation for a team that would want to do that, to add him, even if Atlanta's paying, the full thing of his or most of his salary? Like what's the situation where he would be the guy you would say he's the missing piece. He's the guy we need.
There's some dumb teams out there, Chipper. There are some desperate teams. I'm serious. There's some desperate teams, and there's not a big
Desperate
QB
for what
draft
though?
class.
Like desperate for what? Like
Anyone who looks like they can possibly play. I mean, look at some of the guys that we've seen get chances.
yeah.
The Raiders wanted Daniel Jones to start. He was the one who said, I'm good. I'm going to go on the practice squad because he's like, I need quarterback rehab.
Yeah.
And, I could definitely see, like, would you put it past the Titans completely? Because Levis is a goner.
Yeah, I
Would you
just
put it
think
past the Titans?
at his age though, and
I'm with you, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much if he's going to keep throwing interceptions. I'd rather have somebody young that
if he
I might be
can't
able to groom into something. Yeah.
if he can't plant and throw, he's useless.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And he can't plant and throw, and he keeps saying it's not the Achilles. Yes, it is, dude. Just say it. But the Falcons are idiots because they took a 36-year-old and signed him to that contract. I mean, it's bad enough they drafted Penix, so they basically. But that Achilles always should have been the sticking point.
Yeah. Talk about just mismanaging or misreading a situation. I mean, I'm sure the Vikings are. We said at the time it was the right decision to let him go, and
Yeah,
this entire season has been
crazy. That's what I'm telling you. Crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think he's the one that said
Executive of the year. Yeah.
We're not doing this. Executive of the year, possibly.
Yep.
Roscoe, you've been very patient. What was your question?
No, I got a couple quick ones for you. I'll start with, you were talking about greatest free agent class of all time. One guy's name who we haven't mentioned this entire show, Blake Cashman. The Vikings are 12-0 when he plays, 0-2 when he doesn't play. How much of a correlation can you draw from that? I mean,
Well,
he has made a significant difference when he does play, and we have seen him flash plenty of times in those victories.
Well, he's kind of the quarterback of the defense there. He's the caller. And we saw the weeks that he was out, they got attacked over the middle, right?
Yep.
Teams ran the ball more. So
Yep.
his when he wasn't on the field, it was noticeable in terms of the way that defense ran and just I knew he was, I covered him with Gophers and kind of followed him from a little bit from afar. I thought he was a good player, particularly at Houston. He got a lot of tackles. I didn't know he was this versatile in terms of how smart he is, how the guy can run. And then obviously he's very physical as a tackler. So he's just been fantastic for him.
Yeah, I think the thing too, again, is fit, right?
Yeah.
If Blake Cashman had signed with, I don't know, take your pick. If Blake Cashman signed with the Bears, is Blake Cashman as impactful? I think that Flores fit becomes a very important thing. Like, do I think Greenard is this good everywhere? I mean, I think he's good no matter where he goes, but I know, like, Danielle Hunter is probably best off in a 4-3 in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Greenard is far better off probably in a 3-4 here. So, and look, in retrospect, you guys, I think letting Danielle walk, as much as we said, hold on a second, Cousins is gone, and now I don't know the Vikings sweated that one much, because I think that as good as that dude is, and he's fantastic, and he is near the top of the league again in sacks, Chip, I think the reality is this. His fit in a 3-4 was just never going to be as good as it was as the edge in a 4-3.
No, and we all said, God, you're going to have to replace it. You're going to have to replace his sacks. And I think they probably said, don't worry, we will.
Yeah, shut up.
We'll find somebody we find the guys that actually, fit better than Danielle. Like, a great player could be really highly productive in any scheme? Probably. But it's just what scheme are you best fit for? And I think you're seeing both sides show that. And so they clearly had a plan. And like you said, I think they knew Greenard would be a better fit for flow system than Daniil was.
Well, and I think we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, essentially with the way the money lines up, even though it's not a trade, you basically traded Daniil Hunter for Jonathan Greenard and Blake Cashman, who both came from the Texans. So in a weird way, roundabout way, that kind of worked out. Okay, my final question for you guys, or at least thought from me, the Vikings at 12-2, unexpected success, great. Me going into the year said every game the Vikings win is great. Every game they lose, whatever, doesn't really matter. Let it go. Transition year. I still look at the Vikings at 12-2, and I this is the one thought that keeps coming back to me now that they quote unquote control their own destiny. Perhaps maybe they don't get the number 1 seed, but maybe they still win the division. For me to take this team seriously as somebody who is a Super Bowl contender, I think you have to win the division, because I don't buy for 1 second that this team, and even though past teams have nothing to do with this team, I don't buy that this organization is going to potentially go on the road outdoors and win 3 playoff games in January. So I think it's imperative you get at least 1, maybe 2 home games. So I think the division to me is most important. And then the gravy on top is if you are able to still acquire that number 1 seed. And it does just feel inevitable. Unless you win 2 more in a row and Detroit dumps the next 2 for 3 losses in a row, it feels inevitable it's going to come down to week 18 at Ford Field.
Yeah, I said when you got in this position, try to get that, do everything to get that. Would you rather be at US Bank Stadium for a game or somewhere else? Obviously. I mean, the advantage that gives them, and I think it is going to come down to that last game, and that's going to be a heck of a theater for that, all that's going in there. But I've changed my expectations about this team. You look around and it's like, I don't think there's any team where you're saying, yeah, we have similar records, but man, everybody's playing for second because this team's just so. I don't see it. I mean, I thought the Lions were the best team all year, but now with their injury situation, I mean, can they overcome that? I mean, that's just such a. Would you say 16, Judd, on IR?
Yeah, 16. Well, 13.
That's absurd.
Going into the Bills game, 13 defensive players alone. IR. 3 more got hurt against the Bills, and then Montgomery's tore his knee up in that game as well. So now they're down to Gibbs. Gibbs is really good, but the whole thing was the 1-2 punch. So exactly. I mean, the Eagles running the table actually scares me more.
I think
that's more of a possibility.
I think the Eagles' talent. I mean, we look at Saquon. I think their defensive front. They got some dudes there that are really good. I think their talents probably gives them the advantage, but I mean, I look at if that game was at US Bank Stadium and Jefferson has a monster game or Greenard or I don't think there's a great separation between.
I agree completely.
If the Packers got hot, would you be surprised? No.
The Packers I think, are better than the Lions right now, given the Lions' current state.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me one of those 4 teams draw it out of hat, they're going to be the NFC representative, I would not shocked at all by any of it.
Absolutely.
Vikings at Eagles in the NFC Championship game, boys. I ask you, what could go wrong?
You know what?
Not like we haven't seen
Mr.
it before.
Positivity, KO. With Mr. Positivity, I have no idea what you're talking about, Roscoe. All right, great stuff, Chipper. Thank you very much. Purple Access. We will see you later.